Well, hey, y'all. Welcome to the Ho-Ho. What did you call me? Welcome to the Ho-Down, because it's time for country and western news with your Music City mistress, the Honky Tonk queen herself, Lindsay Lawler.
That's her.
She's a friend of yours, she's a friend of mine.
That's her. I heard of her. I've seen her.
Fun size.
People like
That's
that.
me.
Mashed potatoes.
Oh my God, I love mashed potatoes. You know what I've started doing lately? I put a little bit of ranch in my mashed potatoes and then stir it all up.
I'd give it a shot.
I know.
I'd give it a shot.
I'll
I'd give
do
it a
it.
shot. I can't.
I
say
make them, not when I'm making them. There's a bit of difference. I don't make the mashed potatoes with ranch. I make the mashed potatoes how you normally do it with all
add
the
it.
other stuff. The butter, the sour cream, or cream cheese. I use one of the two. Cream, all of it. I mean, they're terrible. I don't make them that often because it's a production to make mashed potatoes. But when I do, I make it with all that. And then it's usually the next day, like if I'm eating leftover mashed potatoes. That's what it is, guys, not at the time. Leftover mashed potatoes, I add a little ranch, and then I heat it up. I'm not saying it's healthy. I'm saying it's good.
But by the way, the recipe you just described for mashed potato, there's nothing about that that's healthy. There's a point where that's restaurant good, though. I'm proud of it.
And I eat mashed potatoes like, I make them like twice a year. So if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do
They're
it.
party dish, dude. They're party dish. They're everybody's having a good time, Brian, kind of dish. Absolutely.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, and pregnant. I'm
Go
not pregnant, but you know
on.
what I'm saying. All right, welcome back to your country and western music news, because on this show, boys, we celebrate all kinds.
All kinds.
And we celebrate both kinds.
Both kinds.
Both kinds, all kinds, mashed potato kinds.
Both kinds, all kinds, mashed potato kinds.
I do want to also point out that Long Haul Paul said over in the chat, he read a quip online that said, we're in real trouble when the folk music gets good again. That means people are talking. That means people are pontificating. That means people have things to say, and they're saying them, and we're listening. Speaking of people that had things to say, I'm going to talk about a power duo. But Jim, when I say, I know you know who I'm about to talk about, but so in general, when I say iconic male-female duos in country music, or music in general, I guess, who comes to mind off the top of your head besides the duo I'm about to talk about?
Oh my God! I totally. It's so much in my mind. I would go with Tammy and George.
Tammy and George. I also Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks come to mind. Now they're not country, but they have country
Cast a
roots.
spell on you. Oh my God!
That's who popped into my mind first, outside of all the Tammy and George and the icons.
You say country and western, so yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think about Yoko Ono and John Lennon. At least half a power wattage. Sorry, too soon.
Yeah, fair. No, never too soon. Never forget. Never too soon.
Yeah.
So. This week, in 1968, the Just Between You and Me, that was the first collaborative album from Dolly Parton and Porter Wagoner. That was released this time back in 1968. So a little deep dive back quickly on them. So Dolly Parton and Porter Wagoner, they're remembered as one of the most, I think, iconic duos in country music history. That's not even debatable. That just is what it is. And in the late 1960s through the mid-70s, they recorded a bunch of albums. They toured together. Dolly Parton was also, of course, a regular on the Porter Wagoner show. At the time, though, Jim, fans, they had a very hard time accepting the new pairing. Why? Because people don't like change, I guess. And Norma Jean was the original, and I quote, girl singer from Porter Wagoner's TV and road shows. I say girl singer because, honestly, that's how she was referred to. Fans loved her, but they referred to her as the girl singer, Jim. And when she announced that she was leaving, fans were really upset. They were devastated. They were mad. And Porter Wagoner, he invited Dolly Parton to take her place, which worked really well together. But fans, they weren't convinced. They probably literally wouldn't even listen to her, Jim. And when Dolly came out and took the stage for the first couple of shows, they booed and they chanted Norma Jean's name. Now, isn't this funny that you'd boo for something lost that you didn't? Some people didn't even know Norma Jean's name. They just knew her as the girl singer to the point that
Where's
they're
the
like,
girl singer?
Where's the girl singer? Boo! Who's the new girl singer? Boo!
One more time.
My how times have changed.
Boo.
Ish.
Boo.
Of course, over time, opinions softened about Dolly Parton. Of course, now completely different, and they did come to accept the new girl singer. But in the beginning, Jim, because of Dolly's appearance and because of her soprano voice, she had a much higher voice, they really tried another girl singer. Because of that, her label and the producers and the quote-unquote powers that be, they tried to force Dolly to do bubblegum pop. but she fought that hard, of course, and she came to do what she does best, which is do straight up country Nashville songs. So with Porter Wagoner, she was able to do that and do what she wanted to do. He was a real launch pad for her, a real springboard for her. She was able to introduce herself to a national audience through the TV show. So here's what I think is interesting, Jim, is that Dolly was smart enough, even back then, to use Porter and use the TV show just as much as it used her. Now, I say used because that's what I did when I sang back at Tootsie's on Broadway, Jim. There was a real pivot point in my career down there where I had a shift. I'd been singing there probably 5 years, and I sang there like 5 days a week, 4-hour shifts. It was my livelihood. And not only would I do my 4-hour shift, but then I'd go to other people's shift, pop up on other people's shows, other people's stages, and I made a real career of being down there. I also realized that people were coming back to see me. And I was like, okay, Tootsie's uses me for essentially free entertainment for them because you work off tips. Right. So Tootsie's making a fortune, this multi-billion-dollar franchise and empire, they're using me for free. They paid a couple $100 to the band that you all split, by the way. The entire band, a 5-6-piece band, you split the like $300 when they make that in one person's bar tab. And so they're getting free entertainment essentially. And I'm like, okay, well, that being said, how do I use them as much as they use me? And I mean that not in a negative. I mean that as a positive, like to turn around and be like, they're getting this from me. Okay. It's just a perspective. What do I get from them? And I used it, I started talking to the people, as I've told you a lot, that came there to hear me and be like, okay, where are you from? Where's the cool country bar where you live? Where should I play? Can you find the owner? Can you tell me how to get booked there? What's the local radio station? And so I'd use the bar as the venue, as the stage, as the mechanism. And it's what kept me afloat, kept me singing for a long time, and then funded me making music early in my career in Nashville. Chowder also says Tim McGraw and Faith Hill are a great duo. Absolutely. That one definitely comes to mind. But that's a cool thing, Jim. I think what Dolly did, again, she was ahead of her time in figuring out how to, maybe uses the wrong word, but maybe it's not. Every scenario, every platform, every situation, she used it to her benefit without disrespecting anything that came before her or what had already been built and created. She wasn't disrespecting Porter or disrespecting the platform or the TV show. She was using it to her advantage just as much as they were using her. And then, of course, Porter did, and we'll dive into that here, Jim, but Porter did help her really get the exposure she needed. He actually went to bat for her at his label, RCA. She had been over on Monument Records. He went to bat for her at his label and got her a deal. She was able to release her sophomore album over there. And he stayed with that label, by the way, until she moved on to Columbia in the 80s, and that's when he departed. So I think this is a cool conversation, Jim, as far as entities, as far as partnerships, relationships, to be like, how do we make this a win-win? You've already created this. I don't want to take away from that, but how do I use it to build my own brand that's complementary?
I'm going to actually stand up for the ladies in this situation, and in doing so, stand up for the
Stand up for the ladies!
But also stand up for anybody who is coming in late to somebody else's thing or being a part of somebody else's thing. The breakthrough isn't with Dolly. The breakthrough is Porter, and I don't mean that he's the better person in this situation by any stretch of the imagination. Is that there are so many men in particular who will build something and then they will bring in a woman. I'm talking about performativity here, performance kind of atmospheres and all that. They bring in the woman to add a little something, to up the game, to give it another element, as it were, to kind of promote their own brand.
Or as it pertains, sorry to cut you off, but as it pertains to Tootsie's, Jim, and this will land for you to keep going on, if you had an all-male band, they would literally book someone like me or another female singer so that, wait for it, we could run the tip jug.
Right. Exactly. Where the problem starts isn't in the transactionalism of the fact of the woman or the second player, I guess you could call them, the supporting character, the girl singer, as it were, is when the people who run the organization and you've spent some time with me. You've actually heard me be really blunt with people. If something better comes along, please go there. If something wonderful comes along, I'll be the first person to pick up a phone for you. That was a hard place for a lot of guys in particular to get to. A lot of organizations, you owe us loyalty. You owe us this.
Tootsies would
you.
literally say that to
I
us.
made you. And it's like, and that's the kind of stuff that a lot of men in particular, and by the way, I can speak this, I was raised not to believe this, but the idea that it's like, you've betrayed me. Wait a minute. Did I do my job? Did I show up on time? Did I actually increase the presence and the notoriety and the talent of your band, your theater troupe, your movie, whatever it is? I did everything I said I was going to do and did it well. And it's particularly galling, Lindsay, when you get a situation like Tootsie's, where it's like you grotesquely underpay me, and now you're shocked to find out that I'm pursuing other professional career goals.
Yeah.
And it's one of the. Now, I will say on the flip side of that, though, this is what you do owe the person you're working with, where Dolly actually sets the proper model. I will always love you. And there is nothing worse than literally building something that is your dream, or building something that is supposed to get you to your dream, and having somebody come in and literally not want to actually be there, but not making it clear they don't want to be there. And that can be incredibly gross, too. The idea that when you make it clear that you're simply using somebody and not giving them your all to make whatever it is they... Like, here's the thing. If Dolly had always been 1 foot out the door and not helping Porter Wagoner with his own product, that would have been disgraceful.
She knew the gig. She played the part. She was no idiot.
But the thing is, too, it's more than just playing the part, because playing the part is great, but playing the part where you actually know they're really not there has an effect on the room. It does. It does. You can feel it when somebody is literally just showing up to take the paycheck. And now remember, I've begun with the caveat that the person who's in charge has to treat the other person right. That's a big thing, too. I mean, you don't owe any, and I'm not talking about loyalty. I'm like talking about if everybody fulfills their obligation, there is nothing wrong with two people using each other to get where they need to go. That's okay.
As long as they're both in on the gag.
As long as they're both in on the gig. And that's when the problems really start, when you start telling people that you love them, or, that the only person in the world for you, as long as the money keeps flowing, or until a better opportunity comes along. That's where the other side of the problem is. Neither Dolly nor Porter, from at least what I understand about the story, was ever guilty of that. That's the big thing.
I mean, there you go. For the most part, yes.
Oh, no, there's some moments. Oh, no, there's some moments. There's some moments. I mean, you can't escape the
course.
time period either. But at least how about this? It creates a model from which better things will come for a lot of people. How about that? It creates an example of a growth point, an inflection point in these kind of relationships.
Fair enough.
Because we get Frank Sinatra with the band. Frank Sinatra and that whole band situation is grotesque, where they won't let him out of his contract to go make movies. It is disgusting. I mean, it's just that's the kind of stuff that happens. Go on.
All right. Okay, speaking of downtown Nashville and Tootsies and country music and old school, Jim, the ongoing saga of the historic Ernest Tubb Record Shop down there, of course, as well on Lower Broadway in Nashville, it has hit another snag. So now I told you a couple months ago, back in November, I went to the grand reopening of it, which was a cool night, but not because of the event. More on that in a second. It was a weird night, and now looking back, I see why. Now with this information, I see why. So just, Jim, on Thursday, yesterday, there were a bunch of musicians scheduled. So the Ernest Tubbs, it reopened, and it was in the bottom a venue, like a honky tonk, a small, intimate honky tonk, which is people playing stand up bass, dressed in nudie suits, like very old school vibes, kind of like Robert's downtown, which is the locals' favorite bar downtown. And then you'd go upstairs, and it was the second floor was a memorabilia and merchandise shop. And then you go up to the third floor, and it was like a private event space, performance hall kind of thing. But it was long, it was shotgun, it was weird, it was awkward. And they did this reopening, and it certainly felt weird that night. Here's the thing, though. So they do book bands, or were booking bands on the first floor, Jim. On Thursday, the musicians, all the musicians that were scheduled to perform, a friend of mine, because I called and I was like, "Is this true?" She's like, "Yeah." So they were scheduled to perform at the record shop. They have the multiple stages, like I said, and they all received a mass text message, Jim, that said, and I quote, "Hi." I found this so funny. "Hi, this is Ernest Tubb Record Shop. ETRS is undergoing a switch in management groups, and during this transition, we will be closed effective today. We are sorry for the last-minute notice. At this time, we don't have any further information. We appreciate your contributions to Tubbs very much." I.e., you're out of a job. Don't come get on stage today, even though it's your only livelihood, and you've planned for it, and we're giving you no notice. Good luck with your life. That's essentially what it said. So there's a country artist downtown called, and his name is Jay Bragg, and Jay had like numerous gigs on the calendar at Tubbs, and he actually didn't get the text. He went to the location, and it was all locked. It was closed. There's no confirmation of what might be in store or who this new management is. It does not seem promising, of course. And it was all newly redesigned. Now I was there. They put a lot of money into this redesign. They didn't do it well, I don't think, but it was clearly they did put a lot of money into it. Had the grand reopening in November that I went to. Marty Stewart played, Vince Gill, Winona, all these people were there. But the reopening, if you remember, I said, Jim, it was very underpublicized. Very quickly announced. Like, we found out about it. It was like, we're inviting you, and it's tomorrow. And everyone's like, oh, okay. And according to a bunch of sources, a couple of people I talked to, too, it looks like management was already thinking of a rebrand like 2 weeks after it opened. They opened and immediately were already ready to rebrand it. Now, real quick, and we'll talk about what this means, but for the last, 10 years, the record shop, it's been in peril, and it went almost 2 years without anything, even almost 3, without anything even happened there, just shut down. Hope was kind of found renewed when a group of investors that included some Nashville studio musicians, by the way, and Ernest Tubb's grandson, Ernest Dale Tubb III, they stepped up to buy the property for $18.3 million.
Wow.
$1 million. That's just to buy the property back in 2022. And they promised at the time that it would return. It took them 3 years for that to happen. After years of waiting, bunch of rumors, why it took 3 years to open, nobody knows. And then all those concerns were alleviated, though, through the reopening, and then it closed again. There's no confirmation of what the future might hold, by the way. There's no talk of who the new management is, if they will move away from that location. I don't know when, where, how, what. A couple people like to say, and I don't know, your thoughts, a couple people like to say, well, maybe traditional country isn't having the resurgence that we thought. I don't believe that's the case. I do believe, I believe, and then I do believe traditional country music as a whole is having a resurgence. I don't believe it's on Lower Broadway because it has turned with the popularity with all the bridesmaids, bachelorettes coming here, and new country artists having bars downtown. It can't compete.
They don't know what they're doing. Sorry, I didn't want to be too loud in the microphone. They don't know what they're doing. It's like I go
they
back,
as in who?
As in the people who, as in the bookkeepers and the salesmen and all of these people. It's that at some point, somebody who really loves music, somebody who really loves old school country culture. At some point, one of these people who actually loves all of that is going to go into sales and marketing and go into get an MBA or something and do this right. There's a real market for it, but I'm telling you, remember we talk about the idea of people who call the performers the talent. We've had this conversation before, and it's the same kind of people, and they just all think it can be data and analytic out of the wazoo, and it's also.
It takes the heart out of it.
They take the heart out of it, and they don't understand how to put it together, and they don't understand how to appeal to people, and they don't know how to understand the exertion of space, which is there are so many things in regards to like high theory. You hear about all these fancy pants theories, Lindsay, but you know what? Sometimes those theories actually have an impact on the real world. There's a book that was written called The Society of the Spectacle in 1968. If you go back and read it, they're guessing the internet that we live in now. Not guessing it, they get it. And there's another thing about the exertion of space. There's a whole group of like theorists and philosophers who talk about space and the idea that you just can't build something somewhere and say, here it is. You've actually got to figure out what the best place is for something and where the best place it lives and then create that. It takes time to do these things, and shutting something down and simply reopening it in the middle of an area full of bachelorette parties and screaming tourists might not be the best way to capitalize on the newfound love for the old stuff. That's it. None of these people, it is literally people who only look at numbers and only understand that kind of nonsense, and it just causes real damage to everybody else around them. And then you get people wandering around, not the performers, going like, why isn't there this kind of thing? Why isn't there this kind of thing? I'm telling you right now, as Grand Ole Opry, I think, is only doing what it's doing, by the way, Lindsay, because it's the Grand Ole Opry. It's like the worst location I've ever seen in my life.
Oh yeah, it's terrible.
It's
terrible.
terrible.
I mean, they do. The only good thing they do is they do in winter. They do Opry to the Ryman, and they take it back. And the Grand Ole Opry performs at the Ryman. I think it's like December and January. It's 2 months in the winter, and they move it back there. I mean, the Ryman has shows, year long, but they move the Opry back to the Ryman. It's right downtown. It's where it should be. It's right behind Tootsie's in that famous back alley where people they perform at the Ryman, and then they'd go in the back room at Tootsie's and try new stuff out, and it was a private space in the initial back room at Tootsie's. So yeah, I mean, they back to the roots, I think would be interesting. People don't understand. It's kind of like the Bluebird Cafe too. People come to town and they'll call me and they'll be like, "Can you get me into the Bluebird?" I'm like, "I can, but you don't want to. Like, it's in a strip mall in Green Hills. You have to be quiet. It's lost its luster. Let me tell you 10 other places that are better to go."
Let me ask you something. You know the studio United Artists, right?
Of course.
Do you know how it was? Do you know how it was founded?
No.
Okay, it was Charlie Chaplin, Douglas Fairbanks, Mary Pickford, and D.W. Griffith. It was the four most I mean, I'm talking about this. I mean, this was bigger than anybody you could possibly imagine today in regards to 4 stars sitting down and doing something. This was extraordinary, and the story you just told is why United Artists came into existence. It's why it actually came into being, for this kind of nonsense. The idea that people could profit from you like crazy and take full advantage of you, and then in the blink of an eye being like, yeah, we're not only firing you, but we're removing anybody's ability to make a living whatsoever in the blink of an eye. And it's why United Artists came into existence, for shit like this. That's it.
Shit like this.
That's it. I mean, I find that is like awful.
The new podcast, Shit Like This, country and western.
Because all of these people, not only do they want to offshore everything, they want to offshore even how they terminate people. They want to they can't wait to send people, they can't wait to have an AI voice call somebody up and
we're not getting into AI. Okay, we're almost out of time. We're moving on. No AI. More on that later. Okay, moving on, because I've got multiple stories. We'll do one, we'll save the rest for next week. But Jim, because you mentioned the Grand Ole Opry, we will stay on that tip. Because, Jim, it's, of course, arguably one of the most revered stages, at least in country music. But Jim, over the decades, a lot of people have been asked to leave the stage or even banned from it, presumably for, failing to live up to their expectations for membership. So, during there was a performance recently at Nashville's Ryman Auditorium, which it was called Opry Goes Dolly, not just the Ryman goes, Opry Goes Ryman. It was a celebration of Dolly Parton's 78th birthday, and Elle King generated like crazy outrage. People were so mad because, Jim, she came on stage like visibly drunk, like bad. She came on stage and told the audience that she was effing hammered, use the word. And then she got really combative with banter with concert goers. She forgot the words to Dolly Parton's Marry Me while she was performing at Dolly Parton's 78th birthday celebration. That's worth getting banned.
Thanks. Been nice. Get out.
Yeah.
Hit the
whoops.
bricks. Tell your story.
She actually didn't even apologize, and she's yet to return.
Why would she?
Of course. Johnny Cash actually was banned from the Opry in 1973, where he smashed stage lights with a microphone stand, and of course, alcohol was a big factor in that. The most famous band artist, of course, was Hank Williams. He got his membership axed actually because of his drunkenness and unreliability. Jerry Lee Lewis as well. He was booted from the Opry stage from among many, many offenses.
A list.
But a whole list, you're right. But he did also drop the F-bomb, not only on stage, but live on air. And this was also back then. This was like a long time ago. That was a big
the original punk rocker. Yeah.
You might as well have murdered somebody on stage at that point, actually. But there's only one example of a singer whose banned from the Opry was actually was total and permanent. And it wasn't the venue's decision to keep this ban in place, however. But there's we'll talk more about this because I find it interesting, basically, Jim, just like the standards that are around it. Jerry Lee Lewis, he broke a number of rules, but perhaps most critically, he as well, of course, F-bombed on stage. That gets you canned. Minnie Pearl, many more. Even, what's his name? Skeeter Davis. Skeeter Davis, he got booted. She spoke her mind on a really touchy topic. And during that performance, she criticized Nashville police for arresting 11 street preachers who were approaching people at a local mall. Boom, you're out. Can't go there. It's very interesting. We're going to talk next week a little more about the standards in country music and if they are if they are correct or incorrect. And it's not just even the times. It's what country music was based on, born on, and it goes back to traditional values that we're talking about, with whether it be Ernest Tubb or with folk music or what we're about to say, what we're allowed to say. Feel free to make your comments over in the chat, and we'll dive into it more next week. Okay, finally, born on this day in 1943 in Robbinsville, North Carolina, was Ronnie Milsap. I love Ronnie Milsap. He's, of course, country music singer. He's one of the most amazing pianists. His vocal range still is insane. He became one of country music's most well-known blind singers, by the way, which is a whole another topic about writing music and performing if you're blind. Of course, one of the most successful crossover artists. Songs like "There's Just No Getting Over Me" and "There's a Stranger in My House." He's credited with 6 Grammy Awards and 40 #1 country music hits. Good morning. He's still alive. He's still kicking and making music. That's your country and Western music news here on Road Gang Radio. I'm Lindsay Lawler. That's Jimmy Mack. Phone Master Dre on the ones and the twos. Have the best weekend, everybody, and get home safe. You too, Jimmy Mack. You Phone Master